Hi, I'm Karlee Vincent,
And I'm Julienne Jobs.
and welcome back to Messy Mommies. Woo,
Woo!
woo. Today we are going to talk about setting family expectations and boundaries around the holidays.
So hard. So
I
difficult.
would like to acknowledge that it's probably one of the most difficult things to accomplish around the holiday season, especially when you have such a large family. I think for me in particular, and I know you could most definitely speak to your experience, I've got four sets of in-laws and extended family. I'm the oldest of seven siblings. And my husband has three sisters. We now have a bunch of nieces and nephews. How in the world are we supposed to set boundaries and expectations with family members during the holidays? It feels like to me it's nearly impossible. What do
It
you
feels
think?
really overwhelming. Yeah, I feel really overwhelmed by the whole thing when, that first Christmas after I had my first child, I never felt so like tugged in different directions. There's no jealousy so much over like, oh, they see the kids all the time, blah, blah, blah. At least I think so. But because they both lived the same distance and they were both involved with watching my daughter while I'd work. So they would see her often. But there was, the whole thing with, are you coming over for Thanksgiving? Because we have our traditions. Are you coming over for Christmas? Because we really want to continue to keep our traditions. And it's tough when you are a young family and you have all these expectations in your mind of how, oh, I want to do all these, cutesy things with my kid and my husband or, my spouse. Um, Maybe just the three of us or the four of, however many is in your immediate family. And they have other ideas. And those ideas conflict with your ideas. And somehow, one party feels entitled to, having access to your time and to your schedule, that kind of thing. It's really frustrating. And then you have to drive this long distance. And, long story short, for me, I'm still driving. I'm still driving to these places. But my parents have moved 2 states away now. And so it's much harder for them to see us and likewise us to see them. And so when we do see each other, it's kind of like I have to tell the other grandparents in the equation, hey, they're coming down and we're going to be spending time with them for X amount of time because we don't see them as often as we see you. We see you every week. So if that's a problem, then I guess,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, you got to sit with your feelings, I guess. I don't
It's
know.
it's so difficult to balance those expectations, especially for me. We have my mother-in-law lives in Sacramento, which is great, but my family lives in Kentucky. My husband's family, his dad lives in Dallas. So this year we are actually traveling for the holidays to Dallas to go and see them. And the other thing too, my husband's a firefighter, so we're trying to balance our holiday schedule around what he's scheduled to work. So this year he just happens to be off during Christmas. And the pandemic kind of messed up the flow for our family a little bit in terms of spending time with different family members. But we will be going to Dallas this year because last year we spent Christmas with my husband's mom in Sacramento. So it for us has now become a rotation, and I had to have that conversation a couple of years ago. Oh, this year we are going to be coming out, and if for some reason Ryan's schedule shows that he's working that year on Christmas, like next year I know he's going to be working on Christmas, we'll stay local. We'll try and go to my mother-in-law's because it's a lot easier for me to travel to Sacramento rather than flying to Dallas or Kentucky um,
Right.
to spend time with the family. So when we are rotating, I also rotate the other holiday times as well. So the big holiday time to be with family, again, we just passed Thanksgiving. So this year we're not going to be with my mother-in-law. So we went to her house for Thanksgiving for the week. And just try and balance the time and the schedules amongst those family members. But one of the hardest things I feel like for us is making sure that we are getting time at home to celebrate that family time as well, because that
Right.
is so valuable and needed for families. And instead of jumping in the car or getting on an airplane and trying to fit in all the time that we can, we have that time for a family to just enjoy each other during that season. The other thing I'll say really quickly, my husband and his whole family are originally from Canada. And so one year we went up to Canada around the holiday,
Wow.
and I kid you not, we were driving the whole time. We went from one house to the next house to a family friend's, back over to another house. We stayed here, and we had our oldest daughter with us at the time. And I tell you, I was just so wiped out.
It's exhausting just going in one direction to a place, especially when it's, the farther away it is, the more of a time suck, an energy suck out of your body. And I do the same thing that you do too, as far as like alternating the holidays. So if, I'm going to be, not me, but if my family is going to be staying with one set of grandparents for Thanksgiving, I try to make sure that the other set is going to see us for Christmas, and then, flip flop those the following year. So it's not just like, several years in a row, we're just seeing Grandma Joe for Thanksgiving, or,
Exactly.
Papa Tom for whatever. And so, yeah, it's tough because there's still like that, I don't know, just like tone in their voice sometimes, and they're like, "Oh, are you going to be here for Thanksgiving? Oh, that's right. Oh, it's their turn this year." And you're kind of like, "You knew." Like, it wasn't a surprise. Like, this was expected. It's almost like having to deal with toddlers, I feel like, in a way, because they too do that. They get like big emotions, big feelings over things, and they have to let you know that they have their big feelings, and you're sort of like, okay. Me and my eye roll, I'm just like, all right, well, so sorry
Right.
you feel that way. I understand that this is hard,
I think
but
with
it's happening.
Oh, totally. I think with
Yeah.
the societal expectations, especially on, I feel like more moms, women trying to balance that, it's a lot. It's emotionally tiring. It's exhausting. Last year we drove up to Washington to my sister-in-law's house,
Wow.
and I just remember my own emotions and feelings having just a really hard time balancing that for myself. And I came back
Yeah.
home, I'm like, I think I might have been the grumpiest person there the whole.
Well, and it's almost as if like you have these big feelings and it's your job to validate everyone else's big feelings around the moment, but you're not really allowed to express how you feel because you're the mom, and you're just supposed to, like, maybe, from an in-laws perspective, your job is to bring your kids to see them, and maybe from your child's perspective, your job is to make sure they have a good time, and maybe
Right.
from your spouse's perspective, you're the planner and you should really just be on the ball, and there's almost no room for you to have compassion or care for yourself,
In that
which is like so backwards because society is out here telling us like you need to do self-care. Do self-care. Don't forget about self-care, but also be selfless. Be selfless while
exactly.
also showing self-care. And it's like,
Uh,
uh what do you want me to
Wait a
be?
second. What, we can't
Yeah.
be everything. I
It
think,
sounds like a lose-lose situation to me.
oh, 100%. I think this is a perfect reminder for anybody out there that is trying to be everything. You can't. Be okay to give yourself some space. Like this
Yeah.
morning, I woke up. My daughter is going to be in the Nutcracker next week, which I'm really excited about.
Congrats.
My younger daughter is going to be celebrating her 5th birthday on December 20th, just a couple of days before Christmas. And so not only am I balancing kind of holiday things happening, but trying to balance birthday and not trying to overshadow the fact that my younger daughter is going to be having another revolution around the sun. It just is one of those things that you got to make sure you're giving yourself enough time in between to take a breath, because moms really need to take a breath today.
You need to take a breath, and honestly, you deserve it. You deserve to take a break. If any, yeah. And you shouldn't feel bad about it, and no one should make you feel bad about it.
Well, I just, as a final thought before we end this episode, I hope that as we have these conversations and that there's more awareness for moms around the holidays, that by the time we get older and our kids start their own families, that we are more compassionate towards their time and how they spend it around other family, and creating that balancing schedule for themselves.
Yeah. I've been telling myself that too. I'm like, I'm going to write this in my diary because I don't want to forget like how I felt in this moment, because then, when I'm however old my children might be when they start to have kids, if they decide to do that, up to them, that I'll, like you said, have that compassion, and that I'll remember like, hey, this is how I felt, and I need to, be cognizant of how they're feeling and not just project my own expectations onto them.
Exactly. Projecting expectations. I'm sure we could talk a lot about that.
Yes. My eyes get so big. Yes.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. Another great conversation to be had. And if you're traveling for the holidays, or if you are trying to manage those expectations for around your family, remember to give yourself that time that you need to take a big deep breath and give yourself some much needed love, care, and attention.
For sure. Sending hugs to all you moms and parents and caregivers out there who are just really feeling it this December.
So if you like what you heard today, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, wherever it might be, and come back, join us again. Bye.